My book is called Tips, Tales, and Truths. And so I like to ask all our admissions folks to talk about a tale, give a tip and a truth, of course, but sometimes we like to start with a tale. So which would you like to start with?
Let's go with the tale first.
Yes. Okay. So talk about a student who stood out and tell us the story and sort of why it sticks in your brain.
So I think I have two different stories to share with you, and I think they were both instructive in their own way. And so one of them has there was a moment of realness. So as a baby admission counselor, my first year was very wore rose-colored glasses in many ways in my first cycle, and I had made such incredible relationships with my students, and I knew them, I knew their stories, I had met with them. And probably the moment that almost this was almost the end of my admission career was a young woman that I had worked with named Marielle. And Marielle was one of the first students I ever met. She was from Atlanta, Georgia. She was my host at a school when I was there for a college fair. And she just had these incredible dreams. And she wanted to be a marine archaeologist. And she was interesting, and I just enjoyed her company. She was so much fun to talk to. Read her application, and I remember the day that her mother called me, and I could hear Marielle cry. Oh. And her mother just basically told me, we can't make it work for her. And there was zero things that I could do, and it was absolutely the hardest moment I have ever had as an admission counselor. Was to finally look at someone and say, I can't help you. So I'm pretty good at saying no, but it is very difficult for me to say, I can't help you. And for weeks, it was very difficult to continue doing my job, because I felt like, had I lied to her, had I promised something, and it took talking to other colleagues and friends to know that she was going to go to college. She was going to get her dream. It just wasn't going to be at Eckerd College. But to this day, that is still the hardest moment I have ever had in this job. And that's, and I'm glad that I stayed, and I'm glad I kept pushing, because the number of incredible students that I have worked with since then has completely changed my life. And I think that if we're really honest, if faculty on our campuses are truly honest, the life change that happens just doesn't happen to students when they come. It happens to all of us. We do this together. Faculty learn in the classroom when they're teaching with a question that you ask, or a way that you think differently, or something that you want to explore, just as much as you do as you're sitting there in discussion or taking notes. And I think as staff, the same things happen to us. The more that we learn and experience as we talk to people who are coming from different places with different ideas. So I've had, Brianna from Atlanta, who I still keep up with. She and I met, and she was the most enthusiastic young woman I had ever met. And she came, sat down, and she had a list of questions. I didn't get a word in edgewise other than to answer her questions. Ended up coming to Eckerd as a student. She worked in the admission office as an ambassador, as an interviewer, and just really was everything as a college student should be. She took advantage of everything that she could get her hands on, she did. And then at the very end of that, I had recommended her for a fellowship in Greece for a year. As a couple of my students I had recommended, and they applied, and they spent the year in Greece doing at Anatolia College. Brianna was their service learning intern that year. And we also had another student there as well, Mari, who I'm also still in contact with. She went to be their college counseling intern as well. And then this has turned into a journey for Brianna that I've gotten to follow. So she spent 2 years in Greece. She spent time in South Africa in the Peace Corps. And I don't think her mama has ever quite forgiven me for encouraging her to go abroad. So I used to hear from her a little bit. I don't hear from her as much anymore. She may have been resigned to the fact that Brianna is going to go out and change the world. And she's literally going to go out in the world to do that. So I think that that's what I get to see, is I get to see the culmination of these dreams, and the paths may change, and that's okay. All of our paths changed at some point. I didn't sit at 16 years old and decide, I think I'll be an admission counselor. That seems like a great career path. It has been one, but that's not where I started. And so many of the students that I worked with did not end their college path where they thought they were going to, but their growth and their enthusiasm and excitement and the things they're doing now. I've got a student that I just saw who's a filmmaker who just won an award, and a student psychologists and life coaches. And, it's just mind blowing to think that you are even a small piece of that journey. So in Jesuit speak, we call it accompaniment. We do this together. We stand side by side. We share. We do this with, not for. So to have that moment of accompaniment, even if it's just a small piece of your journey, is one of the most impactful things I think that can happen.
Oh my word. Okay, so you told two tales. Marielle, who didn't end up attending your institution, but Brianna did, and you clearly put her on a path to traveling the world and changing the world. So that has to feel really, really great. Oh my goodness. Okay, and where were you with Brianna? Was that at USF or Eckerd?
At Eckerd.
Okay, all right, awesome. Now, I don't want to steer you in any particular way, but you get to tell a tip and a truth. And one of my favorite pieces of advice or things that you dropped was what you said in Dream College Academy. So go ahead and share your best piece, your best tip and your best truth, because there are so many people who you just do really feel that this process is mysterious and sort of like what's behind the curtain. They don't know. So you be your authentic self and share.
So I think that the truth is that, and this is what I shared with your Dream Academy a few weeks ago, that something to just keep in your mind and in your heart is however you're treated in this process by a college or university is how you're going to be treated as a student on that campus. So were your decisions respected? Were your choices respected? Were you as an individual, everything that is about you thought about thoughtfully, carefully? I think all of those sorts of things tell you about how they're going to treat the decisions and choices and questions that you might have while you're a student on their campus. And I think that is, in many ways, how you can get a good sense of the kinds of people and community you're going to be in. And I know that's super hard right now for students during COVID. It's, I know a lot of students want that really visceral experience of stepping on the campus and seeing it in person. But, I think we all know we need to take care of ourselves and each other right now. But I think this is a different way to see that. This is a lens to try to get a sense of what are we trying to show you? What are we trying to share with you? How are we thinking about the decisions you've made? And how is that contextualized in the way that we make our decisions about applications? And I think that, kind of with that is I always try to remind students, no college ever denies people. Applications are sometimes not accepted. So you as an individual, it's not about your individual, it's about an application and working with some really real constraints there. But just keep that in mind. You want to be with a group of people that you want to live with and learn with. And so the community, whether that's students, professors, the staff, all of that are extremely important as you answer those two pieces.
That is beautiful. I'm so glad you shared that. So glad you shared that. Such a good nugget. Awesome. And a practical tip. Anyone who's listening, whether they're the actual teen in high school or a parent or a coach, what practical tip can you give them that they can leave today and go, okay, I can do that?
Okay, so here's the thing. So probably, I think this is relevant for everyone, but I think particularly maybe if you're a sophomore or junior in high school, is that our entire lives are about balance. And you can get out of balance very quickly. So if any of you who do yoga know that there is really a centering, there's a midline, there's planes, and that's how we keep our physical balance. And you have to do that when you're in high school as well. So somewhere along the way, we have treated high school as something to survive. With a sense that if we just keep doing more, if we just keep laying more pressure on students and take more of this and do more of that somehow that's going to make a better person. And what we see is what that makes is people who are burnt out by the time they get to college. And we don't want you to be burnt out by the time you get to college. So you're going to have to make some pretty hard decisions, I think, as a sophomore and junior, as you figure out how to create that balance in your life. So as the rigor of your coursework increases, you're going to need more time for that. So you don't jump from standard level to AP and not expect to need more time for those classes. You are not going to get more time. We all get the same amount of time. So you're going to have to pull back on something else, and that is okay. So please remember that this is going to be a give and take throughout high school. You're always seeking that balance. You don't want to tip over, and don't let everything consume this conversation. So it's really important, I think that personal time and social time with friends is completely undervalued for high school students, and we don't remember how important it is to just be. So whether that's to paint, to walk your dog, to do yoga, whatever it is that you do that energizes you, or just to have that time with friends where you don't have to talk about anything. You don't have to be doing anything. Those are all pieces of what feeds our total self. So don't sacrifice those things because you think one more club might look good on a college application. And please reject saying that, because that's not worth you exhausting yourself over. So that would be my biggest tip, is to start that practice now. Try to find balance and give yourself permission to sometimes do nothing. Give yourself permission to do something that just brings you joy for the sake of it, whether that's reading, exploring something, and sometimes just being. And I don't think that anybody is going to fault you for doing that. And I think that that's what's going to do, is going to put you in a really healthy space so that you can be present in your high school career. You can experience this part of your life genuinely. And then when you come to college, you're ready and you're excited. You're not exhausted. And we don't want you to come exhausted. We want you to come excited.
Okay, that is a breath of fresh air. And I am going to, as a recovering school administrator, this notion of high school is something you have to survive. I really do feel like, because now I finally have come full circle, and what we share is, sort of less is more. Find what you love, do that well, but you have to balance all those things. But you said it much more eloquently than I have been able to share. And hopefully, I'm really hopeful that this past year, the year that we will all forever remember, the year of 2020, COVID, the pandemic, which continues now. I think perhaps the adults in teenagers' life finally will give that permission. We understand. I think we've all been, from one junior varsity Catholic to a Jesuit employee. I feel like we've all been put on notice that life is short, and we don't know what is around the corner, and to take stock and appreciate the things that matter most. So painting, yogaing, learning Klingon, I'm going to ask you to say something about whatever you want to do that brings you joy, find time to do it. So less is more.